Hello, gorgeous souls. Finally, I'm out in the beautiful outdoors and it's sunny and warm in England. Hurrah! Although it's noisy everywhere I go, so we might have some interruption. But today I want to talk to you about joy thieves. It's food for the soul. And let's go there. I've had an amazing week. It's been the full moon again and it's been really, really intense. I think probably you're having the same experience. It's been really, really full on. And what it's uncovered for me, a full moon always intensifies something, brings it right up into my face so I can't ignore it. And then I kind of digest it, wash it through me, get some understanding, get something in my life making sense. And then I start to release and let go as it moves through me. And the moon starts to, is it wane? Yes, as the moon starts to wane again. So we're in the waning period now. It's been the full moon. So that soothing, calming, peaceful time after the full moon's happened. And what I'm left with after this amazing revelation of opening up to a love and a joy, a new level, right? It's always that new petal unfolding to reveal something fresh and new that hasn't been seen before or hasn't been seen for a long time. So in me, I've had this opening to a joy and a feeling of love that has always been there and it's always been part of me, but it hasn't been allowed to really come out. If in a way, it's been waiting there like a treasure waiting to be discovered. I could always feel it through the layers, and some more layers have come off, and I've just been feeling so exalted, so sublime, so ecstatic. And then something really amazing and interesting happened, that the moment I felt so open and in this supreme state of joy, the fear came in and it tried to shut it down. And in my mind, I'm like, I've got to shut this joy down. I've got to shut this fear down. It's too vulnerable. It's too open. I'm too light. What's it going to do? And I just went into a whole fear story about it. And so using the methods that I always use, that I use for my healing with everybody around the world, and that I use for myself, obviously I practiced them on me, I perfected them on myself, if you like. Just using compassion and love and forgiveness, those very simple, basic, but fundamental tools for healing. I went into my own heart and I did that. And what I've come out of the other side is this feeling of, gosh, where's that joy been in my life this whole time? And I'm not a sad person. I'm a really positive, out there person. But like, my goodness, it's such a vulnerable place. It's such a vulnerable joy, a childlike joy, an innocent joy. And I really got to thinking today, and I actually shed some tears around it. I felt quite emotional about, wow, that joy in me has really shut down. It's been almost like sabotaged by people around me. And I was thinking back to my childhood and thinking how there are joy thieves, people that come along, and tends to be the adults when we're children, right? Children are innately joyful. That's how that's our default position. I mean, we're just born like that, pure and full of light and full of joy. And then what happens is we come into a world where we're surrounded by people who aren't in joy. We're surrounded by people who have grown up and gone into their adulthood and have forgotten and got shut down. And then they're acting out all their pain. And we're the little ones. We're the sensitive ones. We're the vulnerable ones. We have no protection. We're just wide open. And all of that pain gets put on us. Somebody else's emotional stuff, somebody else's worry, somebody else's concern, somebody else's belief, someone else's full on. It's just such a suppression. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Think back to when you were a kid. How was it in your household? How joyful was your mother? How joyful was your father? How much was joy allowed? How much were you allowed to express yourself and just be in joy? And were you allowed to do that in school? Were you allowed to do that in your church? Were you allowed to do that, I don't know, anywhere, wherever you were brought up? And maybe there's certain areas that you were allowed to have that joy, and then certain areas where you weren't. And it's almost as if other people are jealous, and they're so in their own pain that when you're in joy, they just almost want to take it off you and say, no, don't have that. So they'll either come in with their jealousy and rob you so that you don't feel beautiful anymore. Or they'll, if you're wealthy and you're full of abundance, maybe they'll criticize you for being wealthy and abundant, Or for me, I felt like, my parents had a lot of pain, but especially my mother. And I really took that on because I loved her and I cared for her, and it was almost like, well, I've got to try and help her. And by trying to help my mother, I took on all her stuff and kind of covered up my joy. It's as if, you know, they were joy thieves. And maybe without realizing it, my mum took my joy away. Now, that's not to say a bad thing about my mother. She would be horrified to hear that. Because, of course, that's not her intention. She loves me. She wants me to be in joy consciously. But this is what we go around doing. This is what happens. So let's just feel about that for a moment. And actually, I was talking with a friend last night. We were doing our Self-Love Evolution Google Hangout. And another friend of mine was saying something really similar. It's like, yeah, when I feel that open, when I feel that love, it's like people can't handle it. They just, I even had a friend a few years back, and he said, after I'd been through some pain and some suffering, he was like, I like you much better now. You're more cynical. You're more down to earth. I can relate to you better. You're more like me, you know? Like, how nuts is that? So for me, this, you're going with me, right? You get this. Where's your joy gone? When you were small, you were full of joy. You were full of light. It was expansive. You didn't shut it down. You didn't have any fear. You didn't try and appease others by not being too happy or not being too bright and not being too wonderful. And then suddenly you're doing that. And we wonder why, God, we're feeling so overwhelmed and burdened in our lives. It's like we just take on a lot of other people's stuff. We take on the world's pain. And how would it be if we just threw that pain off right now? How would it be if we just realized, oh my goodness, that's really not who I am. I remember inside, in the kernel of me, underneath all these layers, underneath all those petals, I've hidden myself. And actually let that joy come out and be expressed in the world, and just be expressed for you, for your own joy's sake. Let your own joy light you up. Let's be unafraid of beaming our love and our light and joy to the world. My goodness, what would that look like? How would that be in your life? Probably have fear that people wouldn't like you anymore, right? But how much longer are we going to keep acting this out because others are suffering and we should suffer along with them and not trigger them and upset them? Like, do we really want to do that anymore? So I've had another really beautiful little meditation healing session that I do with myself virtually every day if I need it, and just re-allowed, give permission again to the joy in me to come out and to really begin to effervesce and come back to life and sparkle again. More than ever before, like a whole renewal. I feel cleansed, I feel renewed. So hopefully something of that full moon has given you a renewal, and let's invite your joy to renew. What would it take? Would you be willing to love yourself enough to, what's the word? Cast off. I was thinking of the word overcast, when you feel suppressed and down and blue and depressed and you've got that dark shadow or cloud over you. So I was thinking of the overcast, but to cast off that overcast feeling of other people's stuff and the world's pain, and just ask for love to dissolve it. Let your love and your light dissolve that so that you can shine, because the world needs you, the world needs your light, and the world needs your love. And I want to hang out with people like that. I need to keep the company of light beings and light souls, and that's why I'm talking to you. So I love you. Thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you next week. All my love.